Loud. First thing, I want to remind everybody to turn their cell phones on silent or off position so that we might not all be disturbed. Unless you're a doctor waiting for a delivery for a baby or something. Welcome. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Desert. I'm Ginger Hemingway, your worship associate for today. As we begin, we acknowledge that we are on the historic homelands of the various bands of Kaiwea people, and we honor the unique relationship that we hope emerges between our community and the indigenous people and their traditional territories. Let this acknowledgement serve as a reminder to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Kaiwea people whose lands and water we benefit from today. In this congregation, we welcome people of all sexual orientations and gender identities, of all ages, people of all economic statuses and professions, of all physical and mental abilities, people of all races and ancestries and cultures. We welcome you wherever you come from, whoever you love, whatever your immigration status or civic engagement. We welcome all those who will learn and grow with us as we commit together to embrace the rich and beautiful diversity of the world and to build a community centered in justice, compassion, and love. You are welcome here. We are glad you are here with us this morning. This time we'd like to greet any visitors or newcomers. We'd like to take a moment to greet newcomers and visitors. If you're here for the first time and are comfortable, you're invited to stand or to raise your hand, and an usher will come to you with a microphone. Right now, please just share your name and where you're from. After the service, we can get to know you better at coffee hour. Are there any newcomers or visitors? Gigi?
I'm Gigi. I'm from Oregon.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Lynn Beck. I'm presently living in the suburbs of Chicago and down for the winter.
Anyone else today? No, you're good.
Trying to keep on track, you know. We have a few announcements this morning. Denise Jansen Agar has an announcement at this time. She'll come up and give it to you.
Darlings, did you know that the Drag for Drag rally will be this Tuesday, April 18th, 5 p.m. at the Marilyn Monroe statue in Palm Springs? Please come and represent UUCOD. Parking is in the parking structure across from the Palm Springs Museum. This is not a parade. There is no walking. You will not have to do anything other than stand and be your glorious glam-filled self. You can wear your Standing on the Side of Love t-shirt, or if you want to glam it up, be like us, wear your feather boas, your hair, and your big makeup. But come and represent and stand up to hate and bigotry in the Coachella Valley and throughout our nation. This is going to be the most fun rally you have ever attended because we have got masters of ceremonies and hostess with the mostest, Bella DeBall there, and DJ Galaxy will be playing, and the Durbans. Come. After school today. You can tell I'm a teacher in my former years. After church today, we'll be making protest signs in the community room. You will still be able to hear what's going on with the budget meeting in here because we have it on Zoom in there. So please come, make a protest sign. Can't do that? Come and show up. Next announcement. Next weekend is Earth Day weekend, and it is also culminating our environmental film festival with a wrap-up of a beautiful film called Love Thy Nature. It will make you fall in love with the beauty of our natural world again. Please join us after the service Sunday on the 23rd, and it's about an hour long. So it'll be starting at 11:30 in the community room. And finally, I know, we have next Sunday is also Formula on the 4th. And Chris, would you hold up that flyer, the formula? Galilee Center, we're working with Galilee Center again on this. And this, the half one, please. And what we're doing is we are collecting formula for Galilee Center, but just not any formula. It is 2 specific types of formula: Enfamil infant formula and Nestle Nido formula. And you can find a flyer out there on the center table, so you could take that to your store and pick and buy just those formulas. Galilee Center requests strongly, really would like us to only buy those 2 formulas because they hand it out every month to families with babies, and their babies that come to them for the formula cannot tolerate other ones, so only buy those. So it makes it fair to families and fair to the children. So please. And see you next Tuesday.
Thank you, Denise. Also, Linda Savard wants you to know that the board will be doing a review of the budget with explanation about the discussion of the budget immediately at 11:30 here in the congregation. With the congregation, it'll be presented. It'll be on Zoom, so for those people who are not here can watch. So if you're watching on Zoom, please stay tuned or check back in so that you might be able to understand the budget a little better and be able to ask questions and get questions answered by the board. Also, Stage to Stage to Screen presents After Another, an intimate, insightful, and life-affirming look at 10 people's lives and their relationships, written by Paul Donnelly and directed by Bob Harrison. After Another offers a glimpse into the foibles of various sorts of intimacy. Ooh, that should be fun. From elder love to the thrill of first love. I don't remember that. From asexuality to open relationships. Oh, no. And from breakups to widowhood. It addresses many aspects of modern relationships. The play is molded on La Ronda, written by Arthur Schnitzler, in 1897, and was controversial at that time. I can imagine be controversial now. Performances are at the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Desert, and you know our address here. Tickets still only $10 are available via PayPal on the website or cash or check at the door. Also, you may make reservations by emailing to s2s2joni@gmail.com, and this information will also be in the on the website. Thank you.
And it's this Friday and Saturday at 7:30.
Okay, thank you. This Friday and Saturday at 7:30. Okay, I think that was the last of the announcements. Yay. If you'd like to be on our email list to learn more about us and our programming, please contact us at admin@uucod.org. And now we will ring our Tibetan bell, our Tibetan bowl, to begin our service, and then listen to our music for centering.
Good morning again and welcome. I am the Reverend Ian Riddell, and I have the honor and joy of serving this congregation as its minister. However you found us, however many times you've been here with us in person or online, welcome. We are a congregation grounded in our commitment to love and an evolving tradition that celebrates the richness and beauty of individual lives and commits to working together to weave a tapestry made stronger and more vibrant by our collaboration and by the sharing of our lives and our visions for a thriving, loving, and just future for all of life. We gather today with the words of the Reverend Krista Taves. Whether you have come here with heart full or heart empty, with spirits high or low, rested or tired, hopeful or despairing, Whether we have come here out of habit, conviction, loneliness, or curiosity, you belong here because you are here. And all that you have and all that you are is welcome here. This morning we are together, the heartbeat of this congregation and this community. Let us begin our worship together. Friends, we're going to sing, as we often do, always do, on Sunday mornings, and we're going to sing, our opening hymn is Where Do We Come From? You'll see 4 sets of words on the screen, and we've done this before, but this is how I'd like to do it today. I'm going to sing the first line to you and have you sing it back to me, and we'll learn it a little together. Then we'll learn the second line, and we'll learn the third line. We're not going to do the fourth line today, just 3 lines, okay? Then, we're going to sing each of those 3 lines twice in order, and then whichever of those 3 lines stirs your heart, sits well in your voice, or that you remember, you get to just sing. So pick one and sing, and you can sing as many and change as often as you want. And when I bring my hands up, we're all going to close with mystery. Let's see how we do. We can stay seated for this one, okay? Jeffrey, can I have a starting note? So this is the first line. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we? Again, where do we come from? What are we? Where are we? One more time. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Good. That's the first line. Got that? Second line goes like this. Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? If that's hard, you can do. Where do we come from? And where do we come from? That's the second one. Okay? The third one goes like this. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. And if you find the rhythm a little tricky with that rest in the middle there, you could actually go, mystery, mystery, life is a riddle, and you're laughing, but it'll make you do it right. Here we go, ready, and mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Okay? So here's what we're going to do now. We're going to sing the first line twice, second line twice, third line twice, and then your choice. Okay? And we'll sing it until we're done. We're going to go a little faster, Jeffrey. So, where, 1 and 2. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Second part. Where do we come from? Where do we come from? And mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle. Here we go. And where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we? Mystery and mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Wonderful. Well, thank you.
And now that we're all awake, please join me in the chalice lighting and the unison aspiration. May the love be the spirit of this church. May the quest for truth be its sacrament, and service be its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, and to one another in fellowship, this is our aspiration. And I've asked Evan Foss to join me and light the BioPOC candle as we say our words to the lighting. We light these candles in solidarity with Black, Indigenous, and other people of color as we journey together towards spiritual wholeness. May we, as a beloved community, work to dismantle racism and all forms of oppression. May we live out our principles so that justice, dignity, and equity for all prevail. Thank you very much. Have you ever been curious? What does it mean to you to be curious? To me, it means I am seeking. I am open. It allows me to listen without judgment, to be available to another point of view. I learned over the years that by saying, I'm curious why you believe that, allows the other person to answer without feeling judged or attacked. It often provides the space for an honest dialogue. I hope I stay curious, and I invite you to also. Now we'll do the April's Share the Plate. Denise, are you going to introduce her? Please join us. Thank you.
Good morning again. Alianza Coachella Valley does something that no other nonprofit organization does in this valley. They bring together community members, nonprofits, and government leaders to address the health and economic issues faced by the most marginalized people who live within our Coachella Valley. Sit with that for a second. This group's work recognizes the importance of a strong safety net. They identify underlying causes of poverty and works for changes in policies and systems. Community members play an entire part of this entire process. At its essence, Alianza exists to reduce the inequities of the Coachella Valley, which are best illustrated by the gaps that lie within the eastern region, that distinguish its western region with its affluent gated golf club communities from its eastern region of agricultural towns north of the Salton Sea with dim opportunities for real economic, mental, or physical health. This morning, I have the privilege of introducing Patricia Carrillo, Director of Development and External Relations. She will share about the incredible community-changing work that they do. Please give as generously as you are able. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a beautiful feeling to be in a community who values people, right, and loves all people, similar to our organization. So as Denise mentioned, my name is Patricia Carrillo, and I'm the Director of Development with Alianza. And a little bit of Alianza. We have been around in the Eastern Coachella Valley since 2010, previously as Building Healthy Communities. Not sure if any of you know Building Healthy Communities. There's a lot of Building Healthy Communities throughout Fresno and other parts of California. And so the California Endowment and Building Healthy Communities decided to address the challenges of the communities in the east end of the valley over 10 years ago when the initiative started. And then now, just recently in 2019, we became our own 501c3 nonprofit organization to continue the work in the Eastern Coachella Valley. And so our mission is to transform the socioeconomic conditions of the Coachella Valley so all communities can prosper. And we focus primarily on the east end of the valley. And because of the pandemic, we actually expanded our work through the western side of the Coachella Valley as well. In our COVID work alone, through the generosity of foundations and donors, we were able to distribute over $2.5 million in cash assistance to families who were affected by the pandemic. And we continue to do clinics and outreach for the communities in that area. But the work that we primarily focus on is our environmental justice campaign, our youth organizing council, and our community justice work. So our environmental justice campaign really focuses on addressing the infrastructure and water qualities challenges that the community in the East End are facing. We also have the Community Justice Campaign that focuses on education equity through restorative justice practices, really ensuring that the students who possibly have disability or need extra support within their school, so that the root cause can be addressed and they can be successful in school. And our Youth Organizing Council really builds the leadership of our students throughout the Coachella Valley so that they can take part in that change that we want to see within the community. And so through the support of our community, which really our work is collective impact approach, which is led by the community. So we don't do any work without checking in with the community and making sure that they're part of the change that they want to see within their community. So through the work, we have been able to pave the road of many mobile home parks in the eastern Coachella Valley. We've been able to see the advocacy win just 2 years ago of wellness centers for middle school and high school students in the east end of the valley at Coachella Valley Unified School District to really increase that mental health support for students, especially students who are having challenges transitioning back to school after the pandemic. And through our Youth Organizing Council, we just had our big Music and Arts Festival last month, where the students were able to really highlight their leadership skills, their music skills, their art skills, and in all is really ensuring that folks realize that the Eastern Coachella Valley is full of so many amazing people that deserve a quality education, deserve a quality life, so that they don't have to continue to struggle. And just a little bit of myself as well. We have about 13 staff members, and over 50% of our staff members, I would say 90% of our staff members, were born and raised in the Coachella Valley as well. And that includes myself. And the work that we do really hits home because I have a brother who has cerebral palsy. And I went through the challenges with my family within the school system, just trying to get him the resources that he needs. I have friends who were not able to drink from their faucet water because it was tainted water. And so just being able to be an adult now and work with the community and work with staff who really want to see that change that we didn't see when we were growing up is very impactful and just amazing. And thank you so much for being part of a community that really wants to love on people and see that change. So thank you in advance for all that you do.
Very much. At this time, I'd like to ask the ushers to come forward and collect your generous offerings, reminding you that these donations are part of what help us continue to do the work for our community as well as the communities that we help support. Thank you.
The joys and sorrows shared with our community today, but we know that there are more in our hearts. There is joy that is not yet ready to be shared, fear and anger that feel too personal and too quiet to share yet. And so we take a moment now to pause for a time of quiet and reflection. Sometimes when we pause, we have words that share what is in our hearts, that share what is going on in the world, and sometimes we pause because we need quiet. We need a moment, a brief time of quiet, of silence in the bustle of our day. Time in the bustle of the life of the church, life of meetings and singing and moving and changing and sharing and counting money. And we need so much, there is so much going on, and so we need a moment of quiet. So I invite you to be settled into your seat. Be relaxed. Close your eyes if you're comfortable. and to breathe deeply the air of this space we make holy by our presence in it, the space where we bring ourselves and our hearts and our needs. And we pause in quiet contemplation, knowing that we are held in the arms of a love that is deeper and broader than we can ever know. We rest together. May all beings know peace. May all beings know an end to suffering. May all beings know love. Will you join me as we sing together our hymns for meditation, Spirit of Life and Fuente de Amor? Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Fuente de amor, ven hacia mí y al corazón cantaré tu compasión. Sopla volar, sube en la mar, hasta moldear la justicia de la vida. Arráyame, libérame, fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí. As you heard a little earlier after the service today, you're going to get a chance to look at the proposed budget for our next church year, to see the results of our excellent pledge drive, and how we're planning for the coming year. And I share so much gratitude for this community's financial generosity, which allows us to do our work here in the congregation and in the world. And over the next few weeks, when I'm in the pulpit, I hope to share some gratitude for this community's generosity with your time and your skills and your ideas and efforts. Each week, I'm going to highlight a different group of folks for which I think we should all be grateful. And because we're talking about the budget later, I was inspired today to take this opportunity to thank the people who do the work of making sure this congregation is financially stable and ethical, and who work to see that our resources are focused on the work of our mission. And so I'm going to name a group of people. If you are part of that group of people, I would invite you to put your hand up in the air and wave it, so we can, and we're going to applaud at the end, okay? So those folks who are on our board of trustees, who regularly meet and work to keep the focus of our congregation on its mission and vision. Anybody board members? Linda's got her hand up over there. Other board members here in the room? There we go at the back. Wonderful. Our finance committee, who works to make sure that the finances of our congregation are ethical and work and fit our value. If you're a member of the finance committee or involved with that, You can put your hand up there. Okay, don't be so reluctant. You do good. There we go, you see? These are people who often, we thank people for doing flashy things, but this is important. Folks who helped organize and run our pledge drive this year, including those folks who canvassed and reached out to individual congregants to ask for money. Our pledge drive and our canvass. Wonderful. And those folks who were involved in planning or running some of our major fundraisers, our auction and our yard sale. If you were involved in helping the auction and or the yard sale happen, put your hand up big high up there, and even if you just volunteered for a little bit, there we go. These are some of the folks, I'm going to miss people, but these are some of the folks who do the work day in and day out, month in and month out, to support the life of this congregation. So could we say thank you to them? Thank you. I was at a collegial gathering of ministers once. It doesn't matter where or when. I'm not going to tell you. I was new to that area and meeting people who would be my colleagues. For the first time I was meeting them. And I was sitting and talking with one colleague, and I noticed a little something in her voice that made me curious. So I asked her where she was from, thinking I knew the answer, in part at least. I'm from Canada, she said, thinking that would end the conversation, that I wouldn't know anything. I said, well, what part of Canada? I asked. She said, oh, Ontario. She said, I could tell by her voice that she didn't really think I'd know where she was from. I am too, I said. What part of Ontario? Oh, Windsor, she said. And I paused, I said, actually Windsor or somewhere near there? She said, well, actually south of Windsor, she said, clearly feeling I wouldn't know what it was. I said, was it Kingsville or Leamington? And she looked at me in amazement. You know those places? I said, yeah, my dad grew up in Kingsville, and my closest friend from college grew up in Leamington. Actually, her father was the mayor of Leamington for a while, Bruce Crozier. He paused in silence for a few seconds and said, dumbfounded, I dated his son in high school. She dated the brother of my closest friend from college and lived where my dad grew up. And so we talked for a while about Ontario, about Kingsville and Leamington, and about the people we knew in common, and I was able to share what I knew about Dave, how Dave's life had gone after they had dated in high school. It helped that, like a good Canadian, I figured out she was also from Canada and wanted to know more. Like a good, you're a Unitarian. I know, they're Unitarians. Canadians do the same thing. But I'm struck that if I hadn't been curious, I might not have found that connection. We might not have learned to get to know each other a little more clearly and deeply. So I remember that moment. In the first chapter of Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland, Alice is bored by an afternoon in the country and falls down a rabbit hole that is much larger and much deeper than any rabbit hole she'd experienced before. That is a gross simplification, but that's what happened. She finds at the bottom of that rabbit hole a very strange land. And one of the things she finds is a bottle that is labeled "Drink Me." And curious girl that she is, she drinks it and shrinks down to a tiny size. And then she finds a tiny cake that has the words "Eat Me" on it. And despite what has already happened to her, curious girl that she is, she eats it and begins to grow and grow and grow. Here's how the second chapter begins. "Curiouser and curiouser," cried Alice. She was so much surprised that for a moment she quite forgot how to speak good English. "Now I'm opening out like the largest telescope that ever was. Goodbye, feet." For when she looked down at her feet, they seemed to be almost out of sight. They were getting so far off. "Oh, my poor little feet, I wonder who will put on your shoes and stockings for you now, dears. I'm sure I shan't be able. I shall be a great deal too far off to trouble myself about you. You must manage the best way you can." "But I must be kind to them," thought Alice, "or perhaps they won't walk the way I want to go. Let me see. I'll give them a new pair of boots every Christmas." Alice stretched tall, and she went on planning to herself how she would manage it. It's not that she was unnerved by what happened to her. It's not that she wasn't frightened, nor that she might not be overwhelmed at points. In fact, just the next moment, she begins to cry and floods the room that she's in. But part of Alice's response is to be curious about what's happening to her and what it's going to mean for her and her body to live like this. Today's service and sermon grew out of a conversation I had with Tom and Kathy Gottberg. Now, Tom and Kathy had the highest bid on my Choose a Sermon Topic item at the auction. And they asked me to explore some of the questions about who we are and what we're about that newcomers to our congregation, to Unitarian Universalism, might ask. What might people be curious about as they encounter this community? And so I'm going to look at some of the questions we talked about together and share some of my thoughts. I may not get to all of them, and I hope that you'll all find a way to engage with these more later, and I'll bring up more later. You might have thoughts that are different than mine, and that's just wonderful. I hope that we can be curious together. Maybe you could talk about your answers to these questions with each other at coffee hour when you're talking to each other and greeting our newcomers. This is a little less polished and a little less fully scripted than usual, so we can be a little relaxed. So I have a set of questions. I'm going to share the question and then some of my thoughts on the question. Do you consider Unitarian Universalism a religion? Yes. You asked me a yes-no question. Yes. But they ought to, if yes, what kind? So I think that we are a religion, a religious tradition that invites its members into an encounter with each other and with the sustaining love that is larger and deeper and more complex than we are. I don't think we're a religion that demands that you believe certain things or worship in a certain way or only eat certain foods, but we are guided at our best by an evolving set of deep values and a commitment to each other to live together in love and justice, and this commitment grows out of our connection to something larger and deeper than ourselves. I think we're a religion that calls us to a deeper relationship with ourselves and with each other and with the wider world in service of love and steadfast faithfulness and justice. I think we are called to that work. And so I do think we are a religious tradition, even if we might look different from other folk. Well then, they ask, why do we call it a church? Why do some Unitarian Universalist groups call themselves a society or a community or a congregation instead? Well, one of the reasons that there are so many different ways of referring to Unitarian Universalist congregations is that we all come from different places. Just like the members and visitors here, our congregations have their own histories, which they carry with them into the present. Some of our congregations grew out of other churches that kept the name church. Some of our congregations have been Unitarian for a long, long, long time, especially on the East Coast. Some of our congregations grew from small beginnings, like this one, small beginnings with no minister, but a group of people who were committed to building this kind of religious community together. And many of those communities chose the name community or congregation instead of the word church. And so we come together from many different ways, and there are many reasons why a community might choose its name. We have a growing awareness, though, and I think part of where this question comes from is there's a growing awareness that for some folks in the wider world, the word church might be a barrier. Some folks who grew up and were wounded deeply by religious communities and churches they grew up in. People who grew up in traditions that were not tied to or attached to any ideas of Christian worship. Folks who grew up Jewish or grew up Muslim or grew up atheist might find the word church challenging. And so each congregation is often involved in a conversation about who they want to be and how they want to represent that in the world. But so many congregations come from so many different places. And that is a conversation that is open for conversation anytime. So that is my answer to that question, that we grow out of these traditions. And for many of us, the word church says something about who we are and what we want to do in the world. And for some folks, there's a barrier. As for some folks, that's a door in. So the next question that comes from that is, well, why is our Sunday service meeting called a worship service? And is that based on traditional or old-fashioned church names for things and practices? And again, there are multiple things for this. And for me, one of the reasons we call this worship is that we grow out of traditions, out of the Unitarian tradition, out of the Universalist traditions that were back in the day a little more, what we would think of as a little more traditionally, that were originally Christian traditions. And so we carry with us the history and the name and the language that those traditions used into our current culture, into the way we do things, even though it's a long time past. And these practices can change, of course. I'll get to that in a little bit. But the way we do things can change, but the reasons I think we do that are often, this is the way we've done it, and so this is what we do. But just as each different congregation has different names for itself, there are congregations that call this the Sunday service, some congregations that call it Sunday worship, congregations that call it the gathering. So it's multiple ways of being and multiple ways of truth. I want to talk about the word worship for a second and the way I think about it when I use the word. I hear worship as the honoring of what is worthy in our hearts and our lives. Worthship. What I'm doing, what we do together now, I don't see as a lecture, even though the words might be meaningful. It's not a concert, even though the music might be wonderful. It's something deeper. It's a call to something deeper. And for me, when I say worship, it reminds me, it calls me to humility in the face of reality. You may not believe in a higher power, but for me, part of what we do here is to remind all of us, myself included, that we are a part of something larger than ourselves, which is worthy of our attention and our contemplation and our action and our love. We are called to a higher purpose, and we are called on Sunday mornings or whenever we gather like this to hold up that which is of worth. Another question. While there appears to be a strong emphasis on diversity of race, culture, sexual orientation, does that emphasis include an equal variety of spiritual and religious orientations? I think that it certainly does, and we can always do more. I know that if you've been here week to week, you've heard speakers talk from the Jewish tradition, from the Buddhist tradition, from the humanist tradition, from the naturalist tradition, from the pagan tradition, from the atheist tradition, and yes, from the Christian tradition. I think that we pull from so many different places and do our best to represent the thinking and the meaning that come from those traditions. Can we do this better? Yes, we definitely can. But we are a place, I think, that honors multiple traditions and sources. So if that's true, they ask, or they imagine a newcomer asking, how does Jesus fit into Unitarian Universalism? Well, I see three ways that I can think about right now. First, for some people, not at all. Nope, don't need any Jesus. Nope, not at all. Second, there are those who are Christian Unitarian Universalists who put the story of Jesus and his teaching at the center of their Unitarian Universalist faith, who are theists and believe that the Christian story, grounded in love and humility, is the story that brings them meaning and connection. I've served in congregations with strong Unitarian Universalist Christian groups. There are Unitarian Universalist Christians who are just as Unitarian Universalist as the folks who aren't. So I think my invitation there is to remember that as we talk about multiple religious traditions and be careful about that. I'm going to get to some more nuance about that in a minute. And third, for many of us, the life and teachings of Jesus, as we have recorded in the Christian scriptures, are stories, human stories of relationship with something beyond us, with figuring out how to live a good, just, and loving life together. You know that I've called myself in front of you a religious naturalist, humanist, but I grew up in a very Christian church, and the stories still have meaning to me. The stories still ground my understanding of the world, even though my beliefs have changed. And so there are often many of us for whom those stories are important. How might an atheist fit into a Unitarian Universalist church, especially because we call it a church? Well, I think that atheists, I imagine there are many of you in the room, and that we, as a Unitarian Universalist, don't require any belief in anything beyond our shared reality. We understand that we are, I've said this before, this worldly tradition, what's happening here and now and how we can be part of it matters, not what happens after we die. It may matter very importantly to each of you what happens after we die, and some of our work together is getting ourselves ready for that happening. But as a group, we don't tell you what you should think about what happens after we die. And so we're very focused on this worldly faith. I want to share a little story. When I was at the congregation in Las Vegas, once a month we had what was called the Humanist Forum. And humanists and atheists in our congregation and from around town would gather, and someone would give a lecture or a talk about humanism or atheism or a topic involved in that. And I gave the talk one day about spirituality for humanists, for atheists. I shared some of that with you in past months. And afterwards, there was a question and answer period, and they were sitting in our chairs, and one of them pulled out a hymn book and said, well, you say you're open to atheists, but God is all over the place in here. And so he said, so are atheists welcome here? And I said, if you are looking for a community, atheists are welcome here. If you are looking for a community where you're only meeting other atheists and only talking to other atheists, and that's what you want, this might not be the place. I said that then. I said, if you're looking for a place which will honor your beliefs, which will honor your tradition, which will engage with you in your spiritual work in your life, then this, and you're okay with sitting next to someone who does not believe what you believe, and that's okay, this is a wonderful place. So I'm not telling any of you to leave, but this is a place that is and should be open to people of multiple faiths. That's what we strive for. These questions bounce around a little bit, but there are some themes that run. What does our church offer Gen X or Gen Z? Well, I'm delighted by the question because it remembered that Gen X exists. But anyway, or millennials, for example. So for many of us, for many of you, I think the story of finding Unitarian Universalism is one of seeking freedom, finding a place where we were free to explore and be ourselves, escaping from less liberal traditions that didn't fit us or perhaps even wounded us very deeply. That freedom is what brings us here or brought us here for many of us. What I know that we've been learning over the past decade is that while there are certainly still folks seeking a haven from more conservative and less open traditions, what many people, especially younger people, are looking for these days is a community to connect to, a place to raise children, a community whose actions match its words, because they see in the world around them people who call themselves religious, who call themselves church, who say that they are one thing and act in a different way, often very damagingly. A community, a place where we can engage with the needs of the world and respond with actions that grow from deep values of inclusion and justice and diversity. Those in older generations might also pay attention to the fact that younger generations, Xers and millennials and Gen Z folks, have a very different experience of the world than older generations, even though there is overlap. Xers grew up learning that our world could be lost at any moment in global nuclear war. The entirety of our childhoods had the specter of nuclear war on top of it. Many of us haven't shaken off that learning, We also came to young adulthood as the world was grappling with HIV and AIDS for the first time, and the fear and shadow that shed over our relationships and our communities were the way we learned how to be adults in the world. My millennial and Gen Z friends grew up in a world where the United States was constantly and seemingly permanently at war. And in a world where they expected diversity and equity and justice in ways that we older generations may not have experienced or not be ready to offer to them. So we bring all of these things and more when we come to religious community. And that doesn't mean that we aren't also a place of possibility and hope for those rejecting or being rejected by and told that they are sinners by other religious traditions. At First Unitarian Universalist in San Diego, this year is the congregation's 150th anniversary, and so they've been having multiple ways of celebrating over the last while. And you may have heard of Nadia Bolz-Weber. She is a very liberal, very progressive Lutheran pastor with lots and lots of tattoos. And she reflected on her own journey out of fundamentalism and the part that working at a Unitarian Universalist middle school camp in New England played in that journey. So she told that story. She finished her remarks at First UU in San Diego this way. But I can say that given my upbringing and my own sometimes rocky exit from fundamentalist Christianity, I needed there to be a place that had a spiritual foundation that wasn't tangled up in doctrinal imperatives. I needed there to be a place for me to be received and told that who I am is actually a good thing. Oh, and by the way, join us in some prayer and meditation. She continues, and I know that right now there is a mass exit from evangelicalism and that there will continue to be walking wounded who need a place of generosity that has a spiritual foundation and where they are accepted for who they are. And I just can't imagine that ending anytime soon. This is why we exist. One of the They ask the question, what does our church offer families? Right now, not a lot, to be honest. Small congregations like ours often have trouble maintaining thriving faith formation experiences for children and youth, and this congregation's ministry had gone dormant for many, many reasons, even before the pandemic. And now that we feel more settled, we feel more grounded out of the pandemic, ready to face the new realities of the world, we are in the process of imagining how it can be regenerated. And as I said last week, business as usual may not work, I don't think. The world and the needs of families have changed, and our understanding of how children learn and how they become integrated into the larger religious community have changed. We want to be imagining something new. It may not look like the children sit up here for a story and head off to another room for classes. It may look very different. And so I invite all of you into that conversation as we have it together over the coming years. Which is more important at our church, community service and activism, or spiritual growth and understanding? They are both important, and they both need to feed each other. Activism and service disconnected from depth of value can be strident and exhausting and ineffective and lead to burnout and not following through. Activism not connected to depth of value can do those things. And spiritual growth and understanding that do not get lived out in the way that we act in the world can become navel-gazing and self-indulgent. I'm not saying any of us are any of these things, but this possibility. Changing and deepening our understanding of ourselves and healing our spiritual and emotional wounds can lead to new and more grounded and more powerful action in the world. And being engaged in the needs of the world, working for change, encountering and collaborating with those that our society pushes to the margins or dehumanizes can help us see the ways that our ego can sometimes get in the way, or see how our own histories might be tripping us up, leading us to new awareness of our own needs for spiritual growth and exploration. They feed and support each other. So the answer is yes, they are both important. And the last question is this: what feeling, thoughts, or emotions do you hope people, especially new folks, leave with after a Sunday morning at this church? In one sentence, I would like people to come away transformed in some way. That's a big thing. Perhaps you've learned something new about the world that has changed your way of thinking or made you want to explore something deeper. Perhaps you came this morning wounded or grieving, and something that happened here, the prayer and meditation, the music from the choir or the piano or the congregation singing Spirit of Life, sitting in silence with all of us, seeing each other's smiling faces, something lifted your spirits or gave you the grace of a little peace or the beginning of healing. Perhaps you came celebrating a triumph and sharing your joy and your pride with others added depth to that joy. Perhaps something in the sermon made you question something you thought you knew and understood deeply. Maybe it troubled you a little or put a crack in your certainty. Perhaps something in the sermon or reading or story or other words showed you a new possibility that brought some clarity about yourself or your relationships, or you heard something that brought a little light where there was darkness, or an invitation to more contemplation where you felt certainty. I want you to be different when you leave the room from when you arrive. I care deeply about how you're different, but it doesn't matter to me which of those things or something else. I want your being here to have meaning in your life, to not just be the thing that you do, but to have some kind of transformation, emotional, intellectual, spiritual, physical transformation, because we gathered together in this way. I want you to be different when you leave the room from when you arrive, ready to ask some new questions, ready to be more curious and open. I am grateful for Tom and Kathy's questions, even the tricky ones. I hope that they've poked at you a little bit to think about and contemplate what we do here, who we are striving to be. I hope this is not the end of these conversations. And I want to close by wondering, because of what Ginger said to you earlier, wondering, how do we respond to others' curiosity? How do we do what Jeffrey invited us to do? How do we get to know each other? How might we learn and grow ourselves by being curious about what we do, rather than live in the place of, well, this is just the way we've always done it, or please don't make me uncomfortable? What might we find if, I have those reactions myself, so you know. What might we find if we don't just assume we know what other people's experiences and answers are, or what the world they grew up in looks like for them? What might be possible if we wonder with Alice what the world we are part of calls us to be, and to ask ourselves how we can care for it and for ourselves with love and kindness and the fire of commitment in our heart? I wonder those things. I hope you'll wonder them with me. So let's sing. Let's sing together. We're going to sing The Fire of Commitment, which is number 1028 in the Teal hymnal, and the words are on your screen. Please rise in body or in spirit. From the light of days, remember, burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion need to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the faith that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of our living brings a song more brave and free, calling pilgrims to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire assurance of the faith that burns within. Then our promise finds fulfillment, and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built by our courageous choice. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion lead to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment, and our future can begin.
Wow, I am fired up. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Breathe with me, friends. The Buddha said that hatred will never cease by hatred. It will only cease by love. And so as we go forth into this world, may our lives be given not to fear, but to kindness, not to hate, but to love, and not to indifference, but deep, deep curiosity. Go in peace, my friends, to love and serve the world.